Good afternoon, Buckeye fans, and welcome into another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. It's Buckeye Friday. You've made it. Congratulations. It's Friday. I'm Chad Stryker. With me, as always, Dan Dubchak. Dan, what's up, man?
Chad, what's going on, buddy, man? Things are great. Things are great.
It's Friday. It's
Excited
Friday.
for the weekend.
Thank goodness. I don't know what it was about this week, and I think it seems like everybody's had a week that I know. So things are just ramping up. Everybody's getting ready for spring and all those fun things. So.
Well, it's felt like Friday since Tuesday. So
yeah, maybe wishful thinking, wishful feeling. Yeah,
I think it was the Valentine's holiday chopped things up there for us.
Yeah, that might be it too. Yeah. So big news on the coaching front yesterday. So are you feeling? I know that we didn't talk about this, so I'm just throwing it out there just to for us to ramble about a little bit. But Threes gets promoted to full-time linebacker coach. How you feel? You love it? You hate it? You're in between?
I'm ecstatic. I think that from all accounts, he's an absolutely brilliant mind when it comes to that position. Obviously, his on-field production speaks for itself. But when you've got somebody like, Steve Spagnuolo that says he's one of the three smartest guys he's ever coached, that's a lot to bring to the team. I'm hoping that we're going to see a really quick payoff with the development of the guys at the linebacker position. I know there was a little bit of a knock that, when it seemed like he might not get hired, people were kind of, going through that justification phase and saying that, like, well, what did he really do with the linebackers this year? Tommy and Steele regressed and CJ didn't get on the field. And, I think you're dealing with some injuries there with the first two guys. And CJ, I'm starting to think he doesn't get it, but I don't think that was Laurinaitis thing. Now that he's going to be full-time and he's not in the room breaking down film when he can, be out there coaching and everything else like that. And more importantly, recruiting is just going to go off the rails. I'm stoked.
Yep. He's a phenomenal recruiter. Kids seem to love him and flock to him. He's a genuinely nice guy too. I've met him half a dozen times or so. Actually, it's over there. I have an autographed game ball from him. So super, super nice guy, like just genuinely nice. I love it. I think it's great. I think it makes sense. I wonder if he forced their hand a little bit by interviewing with the Browns, maybe. But I do like it. I think it was needed. I think we needed somebody to come down on the field and be with the linebackers. And then, linebacker recruiting has been kind of in line with like the offensive line recruiting. It's kind of just been like we get one good one, and then you kind of have this gap. And I can't blame Eichenberg's issues last year on Laurinaitis. Eichenberg was I don't think he was the same from the previous year. He was just so banged up, with both thumbs and surgeries. And I don't know. Steele definitely seemed to regress, but I don't know, was that scheme or was that, I don't know. He did. Or maybe he felt the pressure of CJ Hicks behind him and was trying to overcompensate for that, because I feel like he overran a lot of plays last year. But I could do a whole breakdown of that. So the other thing I thought was really cool. So LJ signs through 2025, so the GOAT's back. Tim Walton is promoted to assistant head coach through 2026. Underrated signing. I actually messaged Kevin Noon about this because Coach Key's back, and the kids love Coach Key. They love Keenan Bailey. So he's got an extension. Knowles has an extension. So the coaching staff, if a rival fan base or Auburn or Alabama was going to use, well, they may not be there against you. It seems like Ryan Day mopped that up. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, how's Amaris Williams feeling right now? Right?
Yeah.
They convinced him that LJ was gone, come here, and now LJ signs an extension and his coach leaves.
Yeah.
So welcome to the world of recruiting. I think there's another piece there that kind of slipped through the cracks. Apparently, they've hired LJ's son as an analyst.
Oh yeah.
I think he was Larry Jr.
No, I think he was there last year though too, but not as a GA. I think he was just around the team. But yeah, he's been hired. Larry Johnson's son, his younger son. Yeah.
I don't know enough about his background. Is that the succession plan? I mean,
doesn't sound that like that's the case.
Okay.
Now, I don't have any concrete evidence of that, but I don't think there's enough of a, I don't know, like book on tape for him to be the successor, because if they were swinging at Jason Taylor and some of these other guys, it sounds like that position would be a bigger splash hire with possibly like the Tim Walton kind of thing, where you would end up being there's a succession plan to be the defensive coordinator down the road, because Knowles is not a spring chicken either. Right. So he's a grandpa. So, it literally in his life, I actually like his sister is an adamant follower of mine on Twitter. So
that is really his sister.
Mm-hmm. That's really his sister. Yeah. I've met her. Like she's nice. But yeah, that's really his sister.
Okay.
Yeah. Paula, if you're listening, you're very nice. So, anyways, so I think it's good. I think that what they're doing makes sense. I think locking people up makes sense. In the world of like weird things can happen, like Bill O'Brien, but, at least doing it and making sure that, you can tell guys, hey, we've signed them through this time. And the LJ signing actually, kind of proves my theory wrong that this might be his last year. So at least on paper, it says that.
Unless they want to pay him for not being here in 26 or 25, rather.
25 and 26. Yeah. It's through 25 to 26.
Through 25. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So some of the things we did plan to talk about. So Ohio State's been really good the last 3 times we've tried to get together and have a podcast about doing things that we weren't planning on. So we mentioned last Tuesday that we'd talk about what would happen if the college football would break away from the NCAA. So Dan, what do you think happens? What's that look like?
Well, number one, I think it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen. Okay. And it needs to happen. I mean, the NCAA, they just cannot, it's too big of a monster for them to handle. My biggest question that I raised, and I still can't get any concrete answers, is what does it do to Title IX? With the scholarship requirements and all of that. Football basically justified the majority of women's sports with their scholarship numbers alone. My gut tells me, and from everything I've read tells me, is that if there's still federal funds going into those football scholarships, then it still applies, and Title IX still applies. But from it needs to happen. The private equity piece is picking up steam behind the scenes. Ironically, it's picking up steam in the NFL. Arthur Blank talked about it the other day, but the private equity piece is picking up steam with the NCAA. It's just too big and too successful to be bogged down by the NCAA anymore. And with these larger schools, the more successful schools, the more lucrative TV contract schools, we got to separate it out. It's got to happen.
Yeah, I was genuinely curious because we talked about the UT thing and the UVA lawsuit, and I do expect this to happen. I really do. I think we already have the College Football Playoff Committee, who has stated they're independent of the NCAA. When the Michigan investigation was going on, and everybody was speculating that Michigan may be ineligible, and they said, "Hey, listen, we're a completely separate entity." So my fear is it's going to make more disparity in football. So I laughed because I actually genuinely think Kevin Wilson's a really nice guy, and I think he's hilarious. And he was talking about his NIL that doesn't exist, and he's like, "You could come to Tulsa and play on scholarship, but we don't have any NIL money." So, yeah. There's already disparity in college football. So I wonder what that looks like. It makes me think maybe we have like 3 divisions. So you have the FCS and then like a P5 and a P4 or something. I don't know, where, schools that actually have the capacity and ability to have NIL and that kind of stuff, maybe they play against each other, and then schools that don't, but that, again, who knows? It just, it makes me wonder, it makes me wonder a lot. And I wondered it aloud with one of my friends, and he's like, "That doesn't make any sense." I was like, "But it does. It does make sense, because right now you have the Yankees, and then you have the Kansas City Royals, and there's not a lot in between."
Right. I see you graciously left our Indians/Guardians out of that comparison. Thank you for not giving me the hard.
I didn't want to bring that up. I didn't want to. I already got into. I went against my own rules of not engaging people on Twitter about
I
and
saw
fighting.
that.
And I was like, why did I do that? I went against my own rules.
I saw it.
Yeah. Because I didn't enjoy the name change.
With the NCAA breaking away, and maybe this is me, living in a myopic world and thinking that everything's going to be kosher and everybody wants to do what's right. But, I think one of the frustrations with like the SEC and the Big Ten is that the NCAA is not doing anything to give any sort of guidance, rules, anything like that. Now, the NCAA might think that they don't have it within their power to do so anymore, because as soon as they implement a rule, they get sued. But, is there some thought of them going out on their own so that they can create their rules and, do everything that they need to do to make it more of a level playing field? I do find it interesting that as soon as Ohio State started spending money, the SEC started paying attention. Living down here in the SEC world, it was talked about a lot. But, hopefully, that's the premise behind it. But let's be real. It's about the money. They want to get as much of the money as they can and do as much with it as they can. But hopefully there'll be some set of rules and guidelines that they can work by. If they do the employee thing, I think it changes drastically. But right now it's out of control. So gotta be something.
I agree with you. I think it's just wild. It's a wild time for college football, and there's so much money at stake, and then the TV deals, and you got the Big Ten Network deal, and now this deal with NBC, and billions of dollars. So we'll see how that revenue sharing and everything works out for everybody. But right now, I'm with you. I think the split's coming, and so speaking of splits on the offensive line, what do you think expect the Chip Kelly offense to look like this year? And so I know we talked about it a little bit in our last chat, but I'm now having a little time to digest it. What do you think? What do you expect?
I think he right now has got to be just off his rocker, ecstatic with the opportunity that's staring at him. He gets to just call some plays with the talent, unlike any talent he's ever had. I mean, it's silly. I'm not going to say it's more talent than he had when he was with the Eagles. Might have been more talent than he had when he was with the 49ers. But regardless, across the board, what he has to work with here, at least at the college level, is better than anything he's ever had. There's a couple things that I think have gone unmentioned for the most part that are going to have a huge impact and make this even more seamless than we probably realize. Number one, his familiarity with Justin Fry.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already on the same page, right? So any sort of transition there is to changing up blocking schemes or strategies or philosophy, it's going to be very, very smooth. I think, there's a huge overlap already between the offenses just because of the influence of Kelly on Day. But I'm really excited. And I also think that people don't realize how much he runs the ball.
Oh, yeah. Well, you mentioned Justin Fry, and that was one of my notes, is that Fry's best offensive lines even at Ohio State, with the exclusion of Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones and Luke Whippler, who all got drafted, who weren't his people, were at UCLA. The kids that he recruited and put on the field, Chip Kelly and Justin Fry, those were the two best. Two best years that Fry and Kelly had together were when they were with that UCLA offensive line. So I do think that it helps. It'll be good. I expect things to be better. I do think the zone read will return with Will Howard. Mm-hmm. QB power will return. Gap runs, which towards the end of last year, they were doing – I loved when they were doing the gap runs. Like, instead of that stretch into the boundary bullshit, Every time they ran that, I lost my freaking mind. I used to turn the TV off. I get so mad because I didn't want to watch the replay 4 times of them not getting 4th and 1 on a stretch into the boundary. Anyways, that's all.
I've got at least
dial it back.
I've got at least 37 text messages from my brother from last season saying, stretch into the boundary. You know,
stop.
It's mind bending. The thing that I like about Kelly is that if he finds something that's working, he'll just pound you to death with it.
Yep.
Whether it's run, pass, whatever. I mean, if he finds something that's working, he'll run the same play 7 times in a row out of 7 different formations.
Yep.
And effectively getting the same result. Whereas with Day, you'd sit there and you're like, man, they popped that run in the first quarter and we haven't seen it since. Why not?
Right.
You know?
Do you think, and this was a question inside the question, I expect a lot more RPOs, but do you think they're going to use an RPO screen game? Do you remember Marcus Mariota and like how they would run an RPO and then all of a sudden they just drop it off? And I can't remember the kid's name, but he was super quick.
LaMichael
James. And like he just drop it off and it'd be like, and he's gone 70 yards. Yeah. And I used to remember like kind of feeling like having nightmares going into a national championship game about trying to defend that. And then do you think about the fact that you have Trey and Quinshon Judkins? And then what do you think? Do you think that makes an appearance this year?
Oh, absolutely. I think every play Chip Kelly has ever run is on the table this year.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that old Donald Duck in Mathematical Land.
Used,
and all those. I mean, that's what I picture is in his head right now, thinking of all the endless possibilities that he can do with this offense. Now, it's going to be, important to see an identity and a base, but I mean, I fully expect us to see completely different game plans from game to game sometimes. And we might see a game this year where we don't see anything like that the rest of the year, but it just made sense for who he was going up against. I think the cupboard is full and the possibilities are endless. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay. So do you think they'll run 21 personnel, which happens to be one of my favorites?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
For those at home, that's 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. Yeah. So, I guess I need to think about that when I say things like that, but yeah, so not everybody would get that. So yeah, I think that's out there. And I guess in my dream scenario have them going 5 wide just for grins. Because I kind of remember I fully remember because I was at the game, but in 2006 everybody thought Tressel was going to come out and just pound the ball with Beanie Wells and Antonio Pittman, and then they just split out 5 wide and Michigan's like, what do we do? I was at the game, so it was wild to see that live, and so I think that would be cool to see in a Ryan Day offense too. But
yeah, anyways. You're talking true 5 wide. You're not talking about, 3 wide outs and 2 running backs that go, out into the slot.
No, I mean, like,
our top 5 receivers on the field.
Yeah, run them out there and let's go.
It'd be a matchup nightmare.
Yeah. Could you?
I think Kelly's going to get to do a lot of things that Day wouldn't otherwise have done just because Day's going to trust him. As happy as I was with the Bill O'Brien hire and as excited as I was with that, I still think there is going to be a trust curve there with those guys, right?
Yeah.
The trust is there. I'm still
since you brought it up, the Bill O'Brien, Chip Kelly thing, I'm going to circle back to that. So I know I sent you the link about Josh Pate going on a 2-minute tirade about how much better of a hire Chip Kelly is than Bill O'Brien, and him saying he thought Bill O'Brien would be like the 9th best offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. How did you feel about that? I'm just curious.
I'm starting to wonder if there's some sort of history there between Bill and Pate State. That was an interesting comment.
Yeah.
I mean, 9th, but that's silly. I mean, I know the Big Ten has done a lot in the last few years since Urban got got to Ohio State to increase their coaching staff and legitimacy across the board there. But I mean, to say he'd be the 9th best, I think that's a little harsh.
Okay, fair enough. I was wondering. I walked away from that, and I really enjoyed what he said because Chip Kelly, is known as an offensive innovator, and he's going to have some talent that he maybe has never had. And even if you go back to that great Oregon team we played in the national championship, Ohio State dominated that game in the trenches, and they were just flat out more physical. And I mean, they just couldn't stop Zeke Elliott. Well, nobody could during that run, but of those last 3 or 4 games that he had, but still, yeah. All right. So
if I was to have one concern, if I can, before we veer away,
go for it.
So the one thing that I really liked, the feedback we got from O'Brien, is that when he came in, he met with the team and he owned that room. I'm hearing the exact opposite with Kelly right now, that he's just kind of been, just kind of observing, standing back, hasn't really met with the team yet or anything else like that. That might be a schedule thing. I don't know. But I was looking forward to the fire that O'Brien, has outwardly. Now, Kelly, there's plenty of examples of him getting pretty fired up on the sidelines. And I would imagine behind the scenes, he's probably, you can't get to this level and not be a great communicator, a great, speaker, things like that. So I hope that, he's going in there and really embracing these guys and letting them embrace him.
Yeah. I was trying to remember the team meeting schedule too. So some of that may just be the way that he's like the timing in which he came in. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in that. I really wouldn't, personally, but if it starts coming out more and more, maybe we do, but for me, not a big deal right now. So looking at that, the 2024 recruiting class, is there a player not named Jeremiah Smith you think could get on the field this year?
Yeah, I do. And they're going to have to. We need to start having a deeper rotation, especially just for portal reasons and everything else like that. These guys need to get on the field. They need to get developed. My immediate answer when I saw this question the other day, Chad, was like the easy one, I think, is Edric Houston.
Interesting.
And even James Peebles, just because of, but I'm going to go with a little bit of a dark horse here. I'm going to go with Peyton Pierce.
Linebacker. Okay.
I think we're still thin at linebacker.
We are.
And I think that kid is an absolute stud. I think he is Pete Werner coming out of high school.
Okay. Underrated too. People really hated Pete Werner when he was here.
Yeah, but I mean, look what he's doing in New Orleans now, right?
Yeah,
I think it was more scheme stuff than anything. I think, but the kid's coming in at 6'1", 225. He's a multi-sport athlete. He's I want to say a state champion wrestler, if I'm not mistaken, or very highly ranked. And he's just got a motor. I think that he might be able to break into the rotation a little bit this year.
Okay.
Certainly going to be, I think he's going to be very high profile on special teams at the very least. I think we'll hear his name on punt and kickoff coverage a lot. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get some playing time at that linebacker spot. I just think he's already a kid that they recognize as a future NFLer.
Yeah. Would you be surprised if I told you that Jeremiah Smith is not the highest ranked recruit we've ever brought to Ohio State?
No, because that's either Quinn Ewers or Terrell Pryor.
It was Quinn Ewers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was looking at some of the stud 5-star guys that we brought in, and one of the ones that jumped out at me that I was shocked was Noah Spence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, sticking with the question, I was trying to avoid low-hanging fruit, but I kind of landed where you did in the running back room with James Peoples. I think he sees the field early in a J.K. Dobbins kind of style, where due to lack of depth, he could, especially against Akron and Western Michigan and Archbishop St. Mary's Joseph's Prep School or whatever we play.
Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah, Bishop Sycamore. Whoever we play, early in the season, I could see him getting some touches, and then my other answer is not a cop out, and I really did a lot of thinking about this, but I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Aaron Scott at safety. Because if you think about it, behind Burke, you have Igbinosun and Jordan Hancock. Then you have Jermaine Matthews and Calvin Simpson Hunt, and both of those are like true corners. They're outside corners.
Yep.
And Bryce West, and they brought. So I think Aaron Scott. I think he could see the field at safety.
That's interesting. I mean, you went with the deepest group on the roster to pick a breakout guy. So kudos to you for being brave. But I can see that. There's talk of him moving over there. I can see that. That's interesting. I mean, you still got Malik Hartford. You got Bonzu from last year. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, they're going to have to keep these guys on the field in some form or fashion to keep them happy. So
it's because we play 5 DBs. It's because we play 5 DBs. That's why. Like there's a lot of, like, so if you think about it, if you have 5 starters and your 2 deep is 10 people. So I if you're getting late into a game,
and
you played your 2 deep, just saying.
Yeah, I can see him having some Jermaine Matthews moments this year, right?
Yeah.
Where he gets on the field because of the scheme and the numbers that we use back there, and him making a play or two. And
that was just my thought. Yeah. That was just my thought pattern. Like where on the 2 deep, besides maybe offensive line, which freshmen and don't, unless you're Luke Montgomery or Paris Johnson. Or Orlando Pace. There's been a few, but very few as freshmen that actually get to play. And Luke was really the 6th man. So the other person you nailed it was Edric Houston. I was going to ask you if you think he could see some late game reps in that 3 deep, because if you go JT and Jack, and then Kenyatta Jackson, Mitch Melton, I'm forgetting somebody,
Caden Curry,
then you have, as Edric, your next guy.
Well, I mean, Edric can slide inside too.
The defensive tackle runs deep though.
Yeah.
It's inexperienced, but it's deep.
Yeah. But he is that's a kid that would have normally gone to Alabama or Georgia and made a splash as a freshman. So now granted, they play their freshmen 2.5 to 3 times more than we do. I mean, it's not even close. When you look at the reps that, the freshmen got at schools like Bama and UGA, it's literally tripled the number of reps that our freshmen got over the last few years.
Okay.
I think we're going to see him, and I think he's going to make a nice name for himself as a freshman.
Awesome. All right, so that rolls right into our other question to wrap it up today. So give me one player from the 2 deep last year, or even the 3rd team, you expect to push for either starting time or we'll just go with a breakout year, and why.
All right, so I'm going deep undercover on this one.
All right.
I'm going Nigel Glover.
Ooh.
Only again because of the position.
Okay.
Now it's ironic because we only play 2, 3 at the most, but most of the time 2. But I mean, that kid, I don't know why he wasn't on the field last year. I don't know if it was a plan to redshirt him or what, but I mean, he played a lot as a freshman at Northwestern, and Northwestern had a good defense that year. Fitzgerald was coach. He played well. But I like the kid's film, and it's position. It's a position where I think somebody can, leapfrog 1 or 2 people pretty quick based on, performing in the offseason.
He was my last cut for today's show.
Really? Okay.
He was, so yes. Yeah. So Nigel Glover was, because I wondered if he couldn't help in like the 3rd linebacker position a little bit when we go and play a 4-3 or a base. So, but he was my last cut. So well done. I like it. So I got Tegris Shabola.
All right, that would be.
I think he's going to be the starting. I think he's going to be the starting right guard. I think he's going to take Matthew Jones's spot. I think it's going to be Tegris Shabola. And for me, it's because I think he had to grow into his body a little bit coming in. So he's going to be a redshirt sophomore this year, so that'll be a third year in the program. If the light's going to come on, I think it's going to be this year. He's got that size, and I know everybody was hyping him up last year too, but I think if they let him play right guard, that would be the best position for him. And I think in the NFL, he's a guard. So, and a casual nod to Caden McDonald. So I think that there's a place at defensive tackle for him because, even though you have Tyleek and Hamilton coming back and Canoe played well last year. So you've got kind of an opening there in that 2 deep. And I know we brought in that kid from Ole Miss.
Malone.
Taiwan Malone. So then you have Caden McDonald and Jason Moore from the 2023 class just pushing right up behind him. So, and Caden McDonald is, in my mind, will be a better version of Tyleek Williams.
Wow. That's high praise.
Yeah, well, he's fleet-footed 300-pounder, man. The fact that he didn't end up at Georgia is insane to me. Like, I thought for sure that he was going to stay in the South. I thought Georgia, Bama, maybe Texas, but he's an SEC defensive tackle playing in the Big Ten.
Yeah, he's one of the guys you have to get off the bus first. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, that's interesting. Now with Tegra. So this isn't on the notes for today, and it might be a topic for another day. But if Tegra takes over at guard, then I'm going to say a surprise transfer in the spring will be Josh Fryer. I think if Josh Fryer loses his starting spot, he's in the portal.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. So there's a lot of thought, and I'm cautious about how I say this because I'm going to say thought because a lot of times this stuff is just, Twitter sphere rumors and people just talking. But that Luke Montgomery is going to be the starting right tackle. Oh,
okay. I thought you were going to say that he could be a surprise transfer if he doesn't break.
No, I don't. Okay. I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe next year if his brother, signs at Penn State or something, and he still hasn't cracked the starting lineup next spring, sure. Yeah. But no, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think Ryan Montgomery ends up being the starting right tackle if we don't bring in somebody from the portal. Ozzie Trapillo is not in the portal from Boston College. Sorry, everybody. And UCLA does not have anybody that I think that we're interested in. So where I landed was Tegra Shabola will be the right guard. And you're right. I could see Josh Fryer being like, you know what? Fine, I'm out.
Yeah.
And go play, at Memphis or something.
Yeah. If that happens, to go back to the previous question about breakthrough, I think I'm going to go out and say right now, I think the 2 deep will have the name Ian Moore on the offensive line this year.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. He's a stud, man.
That kid is 6'6", 320, lean, great feet. And he's still got one of my favorite highlights from the All-American Bowl practices when he just slapped that kid down and got all angry at him, and he just looked at him like, "What are you going to do to me?"
Yeah, yeah. He's a beast, man. And I like him a lot. I think he was a sleeper in this year's class, and I think he may end up being the what I like to refer to as the Nick Mangold.
Yeah, or the Taylor Decker.
Taylor Decker, yeah. But I think Urban knew with Taylor Decker. Like Taylor Decker, just like I don't know, man. He was mean. Yeah, he just I wouldn't wanted to have lined up across from him. I'll just say it like that. So, All right, man. Final thoughts are yours.
It's just what's going to happen this next week to give us some more talking points, right? Because it's always something. I mean, it's been nonstop. It's been absolutely nonstop for 6 weeks. So I'm just trying to think of, what's going to happen in the next few days that's going to be, on the table to talk about that we didn't think was going to be. I don't know if there's anything left that could surprise us.
You just jinxed us.
That could surprise us. I mean, the coaching staff is there, maybe, I don't know. One final thought, though, that, I've heard, and it's really interesting, is that, apparently the feedback from Caleb Downs is that these workouts at Ohio State are significantly more grueling than at Alabama, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I did read that, and I thought that was interesting. But Mick is known for the mat drills and stuff. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised because it is Mick. But
yeah, it sounds like Ryan may have said, you know what, it's time.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the kit gloves off, and you need to get back to the way it was.
We're not going to dance anymore for those people that hate the dancing before the games. So,
oh, good God,
things we need to argue about, man. So, All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks. I know it's a little bit later than normal, but we do have day jobs. So, you guys have a good weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday for Q&A Tuesday. If you have questions, send them to us on Twitter or on Instagram. And take care. Enjoy yourselves. Stay warm. See ya. And as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.